of MS-13.
Will you give Mr. Abrego Garcia the due process that the Supreme Court and Judge Wilkinson has required you to give him?
Abrego Garcia is an El Salvador resident who is in his home country. If he were to come back to this country, he would be immediately removed again.
How do you know?
He has received and been treated appropriately,
So he,
sir, and he is not.
How can you say he's been treated appropriately if the Supreme Court has ruled 9-0? 9-0 that he hasn't been treated appropriately. Why is your opinion better and have more authority than the Supreme Court?
Investigators, 2 judges, an immigration court that all said he was MS-13 and was removed from this country.
But you understand, that is you saying that. That is you saying that.
It's got to be extremely discouraging to be one of your constituents. To see you fight for a terrorist like this and not fight for them is extremely alarming to me.
I'm fighting for due process, and that's under the Constitution.
Gentleman's
and you
time
should
has
fight too for
expired.
due process.
What occurs when a cabinet secretary ignores a Supreme Court ruling and is called out for it under oath? Dan Goldman wasn't having any of it. And if you stand by the Constitution, neither should you.
But my first question for you is a pretty simple one. It's basic civics. Which branch of government does the Constitution give the authority to interpret what the law is? The judiciary or the executive branch?
Sir, going forward, the interpretation of the law, you make the laws in this body. The judicial branch makes sure that they have integrity and they're applied properly to individuals.
So I'm just going to take that as the judiciary branch. Now, let's focus for a second on what the judiciary branch has said about this case. We know the Supreme Court has said 9-0 that, notwithstanding your statements under oath here today, that Mr. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was afforded due process, he was in fact not afforded due process, because then if he were, you would have seen the withholding order that did not permit him to be deported to El Salvador. Now you allege, and I guess the Attorney General alleges, that he's a member of MS-13. That may very well be the case. And if he is, now that that is a foreign terrorist organization, certainly the immigration laws would allow him, and in fact require him, to be deported. I certainly would support that. But the problem that we have here is what you allege, what Ms. Green alleges, what the Attorney General alleges, is not the judiciary. You don't get to decide whether or not he is an MS-13 member. And you don't have to take my word for it, because Judge Wilkinson, a Fourth Circuit judge, very conservative, addressed this argument. He said, the government asserts that Abrego Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13. Perhaps, but perhaps not. Regardless, he is still entitled to due process. If the government is confident in its position, it should be assured that position will prevail in proceedings to terminate the withholding of removal order. Will you commit right now to give Mr. Abrego Garcia that process where you can prove your allegation that he is a member of MS-13?
Congressman, that judge that you just quoted did not say he was not a member of MS-13. Who did say that he was a member of MS-13 was law enforcement officers that encountered this individual.
Yeah, he knows that. This is a Fourth Circuit judge. He knows all of what the evidence is, and he's saying if that evidence... So you're not going to commit to follow this order? You won't commit to follow this court order?
By the way, he identified
Madam Secretary,
himself.
I reclaim my time. Stop filibustering. Stop filibustering.
By gang members of MS-13.
Will you give Mr. Abrego Garcia the due process that the Supreme Court and Judge Wilkinson has required you to give him?
Abrego Garcia is an El Salvador resident who is in his home country. If he were to come back to this country, he would be immediately removed again.
How do you know?
He has received and been treated appropriately,
sir,
and he is not.
How can you say he's been treated appropriately if the Supreme Court has ruled 9-0? 9-0 that he hasn't been treated appropriately? Why is your opinion better and have more authority than the Supreme Court?
Investigators, 2 judges, an immigration court that all said he was MS-13 and was removed from this country.
But you understand, that is you saying that. That is you saying that.
That is them saying that. This
No,
is
no, no, no.
investigators and law
That is
enforcement
you
officers
making that
in the case they
determination.
built against him. If you don't
The
trust our law
court
enforcement
has
officers
considered all that.
and
The judge has
investigators,
considered all that,
then
Madam
who do you
Secretary.
trust if you
And
don't
if you would be
trust judges?
quiet, because I'm reclaiming my time, you are not following this court order. But let's focus on the court order, because this opinion also says that to facilitate, which the Supreme Court is requiring, is an active verb. It requires that steps be taken. What steps have you taken to return Mr. Abrego Garcia to allow him to get due process?
Abrego Garcia is in his home country.
What
If he were to come
steps
back,
have
your
you
advocacy-
taken?
If your continued advocacy for him were to...
I'm not advocating for him.
Yes, you
I'm
are.
advocating for a
Absolutely.
court order, Madam
Gone to the
Secretary.
mat for this
The
man
court
who
order
has terrorized
says
people
that
in
you
traffic
must take
with human
steps
beings.
to follow the court order. You are here under oath. What steps have you taken to return Mr. Abrego Garcia pursuant to this court order?
It's got to be extremely discouraging to be one of your constituents. To see you fight for a terrorist like this and not fight for them is extremely alarming to me.
I'm fighting for due process, and that's under the Constitution,
Gentleman's
and you
time
should
has
fight too for
expired.
due process.
This hearing wasn't just about one deportation. It was a battle over something far more critical, the power struggle between the executive branch and the judiciary. It raised a profound question. Do executive officials believe they can simply disregard the judicial system when it doesn't align with their political agenda? Kristi Noem made it shockingly clear that, in her view, there's no problem with dismissing a 90-year-old Supreme Court decision if it interferes with her narrative. Let's be straightforward here. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is accused of being a member of MS-13. If that accusation is proven in a court of law, then fine, deport him. But that's not the real issue at hand. The court has ruled that Garcia is entitled to due process, a right guaranteed to every individual. Not political spin, not executive hearsay, due process. But instead of honoring that right, Noem chose to stand by a decision that bypassed the courts, treating law enforcement's accusations as though they held the same weight as a judicial ruling. That's not how our system works. To his credit, Goldman didn't back down. He wasn't defending MS-13 or criminals. He was defending the Constitution and the rule of law. He read the actual court opinion to her and even cited Judge Wilkinson, a respected conservative judge. Yet Noem had no response. She didn't engage with the substance of the argument. Instead, she dodged and deflected, trying to turn the conversation into one about defending terrorists, not about due process. This is a classic tactic. Weaponize fear, dismiss the judiciary, and turn a legal debate into a culture war that shifts focus away from the core issue. But here's the stark reality. If the executive branch can simply ignore the courts, we're no longer talking about a system of checks and balances. We're talking about authoritarianism, plain and simple. The truth is, if we let this slide, we are setting a dangerous precedent. If you're fed up with watching the Constitution be treated like a partisan talking point rather than the cornerstone of our legal system, this is your moment to speak up. Subscribe to the America Disclosed for fearless, unapologetic breakdowns of power, corruption, and accountability. If you want to ensure this work continues, back us on Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content, bonus clips, and behind-the-scenes analysis that we can't share anywhere else. We're not backing down from this fight, and neither should you. Subscribe, hit the bell, drop a comment, and as always,